Michelle. I'm a co-founder of Eres, and I will be your host for Eres You series. Ray is our amazing co-host. She will be painting while we have conversations. And today we have two fierce powerhouses, Mickey and Brittany. They are worker co-owners of Homegirl Box. Before we actually dive in, we're going to do a little rapid fire. So we're gonna have a little fun. We're gonna put 60 seconds on the clock.
Okay.
I love
Lemonade.
my pet peeves.
Lateness.
Miss Elia makes me feel.
Poppin'.
I find it sexy when.
People are smart.
My biggest fear is.
Failure. The dark.
Twerking is.
Amazing.
Lauryn Hill makes me feel.
In my feelings.
I can't live without.
Sisterhood.
People say I am.
Magic.
Women are.
Powerful.
3 words that describe me.
Fun. Incredible. Brilliant. Adventurous. That's more than 4 words.
Big earrings are.
Life.
My ancestors are.
Survivors.
Guilty pleasure is.
Popcorn with extra butter.
Top of my bucket list is.
Starring a Pixar film.
Sisterhood means.
Everything.
So one of the things we're gonna do is we're gonna be coloring while we talk. You guys love coloring because I love art. Okay, awesome. So let's select what we're gonna start with.
Okay. Definitely gonna take this Angela Davis. Yes, pencils of color.
So you both are like really inspired by your community and your personal experiences. I wanted to really get to know more of like what women really shaped you and like really, I guess, motivated you or pushed you in a certain direction. Whether it's someone you personally know or someone that, you don't.
I think for me, like my grandmother and my mom are like 2, women in my life who would never identify as activists or organizers, or feminists, right? But I think like through their actions, like have really embodied what it means for me to be a feminist organizer. Like for example, I think like one of the vividest memories that I have of my grandmother is like feeding our neighborhood. Like that she would she would know like who on the block didn't have enough food or maybe was like going through something and like needed a little bit extra. And would cook enough to make sure that, and then like send me and my sisters down to like deliver food. And like that's organizing, right? Like food as a practice of love, as a practice of like keeping each other like healthy and fed and nourished, like is love and is, I think, a principle, right? Of like organizing and being in community with each other. And so I never like take that for granted, right? That even though like, I didn't like grow up like in like a movement family and like very much, I think my parents are like scared about like me being an activist and being an organizer. I think like that was like deep in like the roots of my family and in the women that I saw. And then other folks, Ella Baker is someone who I think about every single day. Actually, for my birthday, Brittany gifted me this like beautiful mosaic portrait of Ella, and it's like hanging now in Homegirl headquarters, which is also my apartment. And so I get to like wake up to her now, and like it actually is like it makes me emotional to think about the impact that she's had on me and learning about her work, knowing like the ways that she like centered young people as like an older person, as an elder in movement work, like the fact that she understood that intergenerational work was important continues to move me. And I think when other people like see me and are like, oh yeah, we see like elements of Ella in you, it like brings me to tears to think about that at all. And just like being in conversation with people across space and time, I think is really cool. Like I think we do sit and imagine like, what would it be like if like Ella Baker was like around this table right now, sitting next to like Asada Shakur, sitting next to Cardi B, like, and just like all of us engaging in a conversation about liberation in our bodies, or like having like a twerk dance party. Like what would it be like? And so those are some folks that come to mind.
Ella, throw it in a circle.
I could see you wear her little hat,
That would be one. Yeah. I have like so many. I'm always like hesitant. I'm like, I don't want to miss anybody. I have so many people that have influenced me and like shed a guiding light on this thing that I'm doing in my life. But I recently started thinking about, I had a second grade teacher, her name was Miss Getty, and she, like, I did not know or have words or language for, which is why I chose my second grade teacher. I didn't have words or language for like who she was in the world when I was 8. But she was everything. And I don't think she was outrightly, she would never say like, I'm feminist. Like, we didn't have feminist lessons in second grade. But I went to a Christian, I call it a Christian arts academy, because we learned a lot about the Bible and singing. A little math, a little science, but mostly the Bible and singing. And Ms. Getty was so generous as a person. She also was Black. She was a Black woman, a Black teacher at that time. For me, it was very important. I was in second grade. She was queer and wasn't out or, didn't say it. But I'm like, yo, you were queer. I had a queer second grade teacher when I got older, and I was like, oh, these are queer things. She was queer in that space teaching in this Christian academy, which was, it was rule breaking at that time. Right. She believed a lot in like reading and power of reading. And even though we weren't reading, Ella Baker, we were reading, right? And she really instilled that, when you can read, you can do anything. And so she made it her job to let us read. And she was like stern in some ways, but also so soft and gentle. And so I think a lot about she helps me remind myself of what it looks like to be an ally and accomplice to young people. That like, in order to help them get forward, you kind of need to really meet them at their level. And even if that's sacrificial for your job, right? Even if you gotta step on other people's toes and like, you have to be the person that nobody likes in the staff meeting because you're like, what about this? She really went to bat for my life in that time. And I didn't have any of the words to do that or say that. All I knew was that I loved her, and she loved me fiercely.
Wow.
Yeah. Miss Getty.
So, Mickey, I know that you started as a community organizer in your teens.
Yes.
What compelled you to start doing that so young?
That's a great question. So when I was 14, I actually had the opportunity to be a part of this youth program, which took place in Crown Heights, in Brooklyn, which is where my family first migrated to when they came to the United States. And so I was like invited to participate in this program. I didn't really know too much about what it was about, but what caught my attention was that it was going to give myself and other like young people an opportunity to learn about history that wasn't in our textbooks. And from a young age, I started to realize that like a lot of things were missing. And in wanting to connect the dots and in wanting to learn more about my people, about resistance, and about communities, I decided to sign up for this program.
Okay.
And through the program, we actually got to learn about resistance and really think about community organizing as a way to impact change. And then from there, I felt like my fire had just been ignited, and there was like no turning back. So a lot of my first like youth organizing work was around housing and also about youth incarceration. And so that's where I started. And then many years later now, 15 years later, still organizing and thinking about like people power. It feels really amazing that I was able to start doing that work as a young person, because I think now when I think about who is like leading change and creating change, I really see young people at like the center and the heart of all of our movements. And it also felt amazing to be seen as a young person, to come into youth programs and to see elders see me, and to feel seen by them, to feel like I was like literally at their feet, like learning, and but also being asked like, what did I want to see in my community, and actually that be a question that they wanted to know the answer to, felt really different.
Brittany, you as a reproductive activist, why do you feel that it's important to really have sex health education and reproductive justice?
So many reasons. I started doing sex education in high school. I went to a Catholic high school, so it was a different type of sex education.
Right.
But it seemed like, I was a young person that became sexually active really early, and it was my way of like claiming my body and my space and accessing pleasure, and that's not the conversation that people usually have with young people around sex and sexuality. But I think in a time when so much of our lives are controlled by external forces or power that we don't have, when we have the tools and knowledge to make informed decisions about our life, I think that it grants us access to so much more. So sex ed is not just like a form of health education for me, it's a form of liberation. Like it's literally, I think one of the access to our bodies, our minds, our spirits, how we know about relationships, really, in my opinion, brings us closer to liberation. And so I have like made it my mission in the world to give that to all young folks, but specifically girls of color, as a path to like claiming justice for themselves and their families. And community, and those are like the roots of reproductive justice, to have an autonomous say over what we get to do, especially as the systems that we, navigate every day control our lives.
I really love that, like sex, health as liberation.
Yeah.
Like that's really awesome.
Yeah. Thank you. I am going to use all this yellow, so I hope there needs to be a sharpener though, because I'm already done. In this time, it's more urgent now than ever that we stop doing the same things. It's not saying that we don't learn from the past and like past things, but so many fields are innovating. If you think about like iPhone, we're on iPhone like 1,000,002 right now. But that's because they keep, like they're like, oh, we can make the camera a little bit better, or we can do this or we do that. And I think in like organizing and movement work, we don't always give ourselves the power or place to experiment, right? To just try shit out. Like, let's just do it and see what happens. We try to build giant programs that cost millions of dollars. And change takes forever in a day. So like as an organizer, I don't ever plan, like I don't wake up and be like, I'm gonna win this campaign, because it can take people 10, 20 years to do that. But what are the small ways that we can practice, that we can experiment? For me, especially as a person of color, like it's very, 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 very rarely that I get to experiment with anything and like feel like failure is possible. Like, there are white boys out here like failing left, failing right. Like, let's have a failure party. Ooh, I just failed, right? Like, yay, I fucked up. But I think for lots of, populations, people of color, women, indigenous folks, like failure has never been a choice that has been granted to us, right? Because the idea is that we would finish and complete in the first chance. And so even our resiliency is not recognized because we can't say we failed. And so innovation is what I bring to the work, in the sense like, let's just try this shit out. And if we fail, okay. Like, and also the opportunity for people to really bet on, girls of color, bet on women, bet on the idea that we can actually create this change. Just give us the opportunity to do it.